Next we have Ramy Katrib, CEO or founder of DigitalFilm Tree. This is his first Digital Cinema Society event, but he's been here since the very beginning. He was a founding member of Digital Cinema Society. In fact, that documentary I was telling you about that started the whole thing, there's an interview with Ramy in there.
Yeah.
He's been leading the charge for years and years. So tell us about what's new with Digital Film Tree. You're always up to something interesting.
Sure thing. Probably part of the reason I haven't done it is I have severe stage fright, so bear with me. So I wanted to personalize our experiences over the last 4 or so years in terms of cloud-based workflows. And I know a lot of people have some issues with the notion of cloud-based workflows because what the hell is that exactly? So I'm going to try to personalize it in terms of some new things we've been doing, but also explain it from the context of our history. So, in our beginning was film, and this is where I grew up. This was my first exposure to this business. I used to work in a telecine bay, and essentially it was the smell of film, the smell of tape. It was a negative cutting house, and just out of curiosity, who here has touched film? Wow. Okay, that's a lot more people than that have touched VR. So let's be honest. If you ever glued negative, I assure you, you are brain damaged, just like I am. So this was a place where you walk in and it's the woof of the glue and the negative, and that's where I grew up. That's where it all started. And somehow in this environment, probably because of the extent of brain damage, we got this crazy idea to transfer film to that cute little DV tape back in 1998. And then, of course, that led to the notion of using a desktop to do professional type stuff, right? Put the little DV tape that had film on it, digitize it into something like Final Cut Pro, and then follow the process that was really dominated by Avid. Right? So we did it on a desktop that was just a few $1,000s, and that was for us the digital revolution, right? That's what started everything. So let's go 19 years now. This is a project that we're designing right now, which is film, right? An old film project, and the idea is to scan it, and I'll explain more about object storage in a second. But the idea is to scan it, and by the way, this particular project, there's no list, so we're not able to scan the essential negative. We have to scan everything, which is horrible, right? The people didn't hold on to key code decision lists, so we can't scan what needs to be scanned. We have to scan everything. As a result, we need massive storage, right, at 4K. So one of the ways that we're trying to be efficient, of course, is to do methodologies like optical character recognition, where we can compare the 4K scan to any available video reference, whether it be on Beta SP, Digibeta, so forth. And of course, we apply ACE's workflow, JZ, heads up.
You're the man.
And with the IMF delivery. So it's really interesting, going back 19 years, to film, right, designing film-based workflows using desktop computers, to now film as it relates to cloud-based workflows. And I wanted to delve a little deeper into object storage, because I think some people have heard the term, but for us, object storage has actually had a profound influence on our business. So this is object storage as defined by Wikipedia, and I'm not going to get into the full description. But in essence, object storage is a type of storage that was not commonly used by our industry, right? Our industry was beholden to block storage for the most part. So who was using object storage? Well, the likes of Facebook and YouTube and all these large Silicon Valley companies. And part of the reason is there were some distinct advantages to block storage, right? Each asset has an address, kind of like a house address. You could always find it. And each asset typically had metadata related to it. Now, here's my sense of metadata. If you go online and you shop for golf clubs, Facebook is tagging metadata saying you like golf clubs, right? And they will track you now until your dying day, and they'll put advertisements of golf clubs every time you go to the web. So this is a practical example of object storage. For us, in the previous workflow, optical character recognition is another example of object storage because we can connect metadata to any given frame. Now, when we started, object storage, like about 4 or 5 years ago, object storage was not that common. Today, there's probably like 20 different object storage solutions, right? Multiple companies offer object storage solutions. So OpenStack was interesting to us because that was an open source free platform that allowed us to essentially build our own object storage. And one of the things that was really just mind-bending was when we went to the OpenStack conventions, which happen every 6 months, and I encourage everyone. By the way, has anyone ever been to an OpenStack convention? No? Okay. Anyways, I encourage everyone to go because they have them in all these exotic places like Spain, France, Singapore, Shanghai, Vancouver. So anyways, it's a great excuse to go someplace cool. When we went there, we found something amazing. There were representatives from IBM, from HP, and they were actually working together. It was really odd. They were all contributing to this platform, but they were fierce competitors. And we're like, this is the strangest thing I've ever seen. They're actually contributing to the benefit of each other, but then once the conference ends, they go back and productize this solution and make money off of it. So we thought, wow, this is cool. We want to apply this in Hollywood. And again, 4 or 5 years ago, that wasn't like the best idea, right? Trying to be cooperative with our competitors and saying, hey, why don't we put our files on this huge object storage and grant you access to it, right? At first, the reactions were not good. But I think nowadays, people are starting to consider the idea that we can be cooperative together, right? We don't have to just compete. We can benefit each other. So these are 2 other solutions. So Amazon is the largest public cloud in the world. 2017, they grew 42% and generated $4.2 billion of revenue. It's interesting that the biggest revenue generator for Amazon is an object storage solution. And then you have little small startups like SwiftStack that can build an object store in your facility. So now you have the options. You can leverage public cloud. You can leverage Avid. And if I got that right, Avid has object storage solution. Even Avid has an object storage solution now. So that means it's really come home to our industry. SwiftStack, like I was saying, is on the extreme opposite, is a small startup, and they provide hybrid solutions. So they can have your storage reside on Amazon Web Services as well as your facility, and it's essentially something you can build using non-proprietary hardware. So why did we get into clouds? Well, it's because we started as a file-based company, and this is what it looked like in 1999. This is where we did the season 2 of Scrubs, and the way we pulled it off is we never let the producer see this room, right? So whatever the workflow was in 1999, this is what we were doing behind the scenes. And it was really simple. It was a desktop. And this is well before high definition. And the idea was to use computers and decks and somehow make the output land on hour 1 after 16 tries, right? And then it landed and we would deliver, and somehow that passed the broadcast requirement. So let's fast forward to what post-production looks like today. I didn't have much time to work on this slide, but in a nutshell, today, we deliver post-production anywhere in the world, right? So it looks like a 4K OLED, professionally calibrated, and there's, right underneath the screen there, that's an actual workstation, and essentially we deliver the VAM package anywhere in the world, right? And then our clients are able to do things like color, conform, visual effects drop-ins, and dailies. on the actual negative, not a representation of it, right? And this is really exciting, and I think one of the reasons we started gravitating in this direction is because as binge watching has taken over, it's given way to binge delivery, right? So now we have clients that are delivering an entire season in a few weeks, which was unheard of just a few years ago. So we had to figure out ways whereby we could present the post-production process to any human anywhere in the world. And a lot of that has to do with IT administration. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about post-host in a second. So without getting into the details, because there isn't that much time, I'm going to just break out into one show and one service. So this is Wrecked, popular comedy on TBS. And this past season, they shot in Fiji. Previous season, they shot in Puerto Rico. So they always find these exotic places where internet is really hard to come by. So does anyone want to guess how much it costs monthly to get internet, 100 megs? That's a good guess. That's a really good guess. Any other guesses? Okay. So that's what we were met by, and we're like, oh, no chance in hell. There's no way we're connecting this production to the internet. So it turned out that the Fijian government, and being very benevolent, it provided a 50% rebate to the production. So when we looked at all the scenarios, it turned out that, you know what, it's still cheaper than flying someone back and forth, which was amazing. So we were able to connect Wrecked to the internet and provide remote daily service. This is something I'm not going to explain. But this is the actual final approved IT workflow for Wrecked. And the main thing I wanted to point out is it took over a month to design this and get approval from the studio, right? A month. Major language barriers, right? They didn't really speak English. They had different ways of administering IT. They had different connectors. They had different wires. And a month. So think of how inefficient that is. When all was said and done, we got our system connected, and we were able to do the dailies process remotely, essentially in the same time as it would take to do facility dailies or even on-set dailies. So this is what it was, and this is what it is now, right? So as we're always trying to resolve our pain points, we essentially fashioned this thing called post-host, right, which is a combination of hardware and software. And the idea there is, instead of taking a month, if we have this little custom router that we made, it's a direct site-to-site VPN. So literally plug it in, and what used to be a month is now 1 second, right? So we just killed that time that we used to not have fun trying to figure out the IT workflow. So what does this do? It extends Digital Film Tree's network worldwide. It's a secure key exchange. We mandate two-factor authentication, so when the recipient, the client, wants to get on the system, they have to go through a process to get on. And there's a whole policy-based authorization, real-time monitoring and auditing. And in terms of policy could be something like, we're scheduling you to jump onto our system from 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock. And once you're done, we shut it down, right? That's a policy. We audit who's there. We encrypt everything, right? So these are the steps that we're practically taking nowadays. So and none of this would be possible without Philippe, our IT guy, right? So it's interesting. Philippe doesn't come from our industry at all. He actually doesn't know post-production all that well, but he obsesses about challenges that we have. And the one thing I've learned, cloud post-production will never provide the same kind of care that IT or professional applies in our industry, right? Cloud never picks up on the nuance of production. So really the trick nowadays for us is to create an interdisciplinary environment where people that normally don't hang out together resolve the same problems. And Philippe is a case in point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ramy. And if you need some post services, check out Digital Film Tree. It's a boutique operation that does big things.